Hi everybody, Douglas Morrow here, founder and senior engineer at TruePath Technologies, and thank you for joining our Tech Talk today. With me is Brandon.
Hi everyone, I'm Brandon Rosdick. I'm another engineer over here at TruePath Technologies, and today we're talking about CheckMK.
Yeah, we've been a partner with CheckMK for a long time. Our engineering loves it, even better, our customers love it, but one of the things that sets them apart is their agent, and specifically being able to do some of the auto discovery within the agent.
Right. Yeah, being able to discover some of those services that you may not know beforehand is one of the big plus sides of using CheckMK for discovering your devices.
Exactly. So in this sort of series, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and go ahead and install the agent. And then we're going to take a look at some of the pieces that pop up, some of the services that are auto-discovered, and then we'll dig a little deeper. So how about we go ahead and start out by installing some of the agents?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so moving forward, we're going to go ahead and do the agent installation on a Windows desktop that we've got here. Now, the way to do this is to log into your CheckMK instance and scroll down to the bottom here where there's monitoring agents. Once you click on this page, we're going to see a page with a bunch of the links to install the actual agents. So in this case, we're looking for Windows and installing the MSI agent. We're going to go ahead and click that. Open that, hit next, accept the license agreement. So this is going to go ahead and install this right in your program files, CheckMK service. And once we hit next, it's going to install this and just start it right away. Once this completes, it's ready to go. And you just do the addition within your CheckMK instance, and you're all set. Okay, so doing the Linux installation of the CheckMK agent, the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we're running all of our commands through sudo or your administrative host. And the first step is going to be making sure that we have xinetd installed. Now, to do this, most Linux distributions will have this installed by default. In my case, I'm using CentOS 7, so I do have to manually do that installation. It is as simple as doing yum install xinetd. And you would run this command. Once it completes and finishes running, you're going to have a couple things where you're just going to hit yes or Y to accept. In my case, I've actually gone ahead and installed this ahead of time. Following the installation of xinetd, we're going to install the CheckMK agent itself. Now, you would have the download file somewhere on your system, and of course, the file pathing and the command, whether it's yum or other options for distributions of Linux outside of CentOS 7, is going to vary a little bit, but you're going to know what that file path is. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do yum install, and we're going to target our file. So it's at home, our user is administrator, and we are in the downloads folder. There we are. And there's our file. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. As this runs, it's going to go ahead and ask if this is what it is that I would like to install. I'm going to verify that, and we're complete. Once we reach the completion screen, it's ready to go and can easily be added into our CheckMK instance.
Okay, so the installation for the agent for both Windows and Linux looks pretty straightforward, not much there.
Right, it's pretty smooth. It follows a standard process for both Linux using the yum command and Windows with just installing the platform. And from there, we can just add these devices in.
Great. So let's start taking us through, you're on the main screen now of CheckMK. Now we're going to go into what? Adding new hosts, right?
Right.
All right, so walk us through that.
So we're going to scroll down on the left over here and get to our main hosts page. This is going to bring us to the page that's going to allow us to add these hosts. So in here, we'll hit new host. Where the nickname is, or host name is here, we can use the actual host name of the machine. Generally, an IP address is going to work and be a little bit more straightforward. So that being the case, we'll go ahead and add our Linux host first. So let me just plug that IP in here. And we're going to set an alias. This is what it's going to display as in the system. In this case, we're just going to call this Linux server. And we're going to add it right to our site here. When we move down a little bit more, this box here is going to just show us that we're using the agent. So selecting this means that it's going to make that connection through the agent. There's a few other options for that with SNMP and some other values, but really the agent's going to be the most straightforward process.
So now you just clicked on save and going into the services themselves. And that's a little bit of the job detail, right? We don't
Right.
really have to concern ourselves with too much. All the good stuff is below it.
Yeah, this screen right here up at the top is really just going to be good for troubleshooting if you happen to have any issues. But scrolling down a little bit further, we're going to see all of those auto services that were discovered. In this case, we've got everything from your CPU utilization to your memory to a whole bunch of service checks for parts of the operation that you wouldn't normally pick up or probably have as your idea going into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like that there's a lot of good stuff there. Let me ask you a couple questions, though. One, since you've auto-discovered this, are there ways that there's a couple things in there that maybe we might not want to have as our service checks? Is there a way to sort of say no to them or maybe bulk add all of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So touching on the note of removing some of these services is something that may just kind of bog things down that you don't want to pay attention to. It's as simple as just clicking these red X's here, and that moves it to the disabled services menu. So we'll go ahead and do that for a couple of these. It just takes a couple seconds. Once we do that, it's just going to remove that from the list of everything to add. And keeping things simple and straightforward, we can actually hit monitor on the left here, and that's going to hit all of the other services up above.
Wonderful. Okay. So we've done that, and now technically these changes aren't sort of active yet, right? We have to go into some sort of save. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so we're going to want to commit those changes to the system. Just kind of give it that extra bit of double checking to make sure that this is what we want to add. So that being the case, we've gone ahead and we've made that. We scroll all the way up to the top and you're going to see changes up here. Changes can be anything from removing a host to adding a service, really anything that changes what you're monitoring. And within this window, we can commit those changes by hitting Activate Affected. Now, once we do that, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff on some of these hosts that we're going to want to take a closer look at. What kinds of things would you be interested in looking at with a newly added host to a monitoring platform?
So some of the things that we might want to take a look at once we've gone ahead and added them are things like thresholds or taking a look at the graphs that were auto-generated and things like that. And later we can talk a little bit about auto-discovery, but then auto-adding and auto-removing certain service checks, right? Because we know in our sort of made-up scenario that the L drive in all of our Windows servers should not be checked. So there is a way, correct, for us to go through and say when we auto-discover those, let's leave out drive L.
Right. In a future video, we'll touch on how to kind of create some of those custom lists and lock down, making those additions and removals as simple as sorting them into a group, so to speak.
Yeah, great. So it looks like there's a lot of great stuff with the Linux. Let's go ahead and jump over and add the Windows side now.
Right. So adding the Windows server is going to be just as simple as it was to add the Linux device. We're just going to come in here and put the IP address in the same method we did before. This time we'll, of course, be naming this Windows server.
So as you're typing in here, there's really nothing different here, right? Like sort of CheckMK at this stage really doesn't know any difference from the Windows or Linux machine. You're just putting in the IP address, right?
Right, yeah. As far as the system's concerned, it's just reaching out to a host that has an agent and it acknowledges it from there.
And then after that, it can differentiate the difference between the different types of devices and services. And that's what we're looking at here. And again, I'm pretty surprised at the number of services and the types of sort of, again, things that we can check right out of the box.
Exactly. It's really smart with knowing what to pick up from some of these systems and some of the devices. In this case, maybe we want to add everything. And we'll save ourselves the step of having to remove any services by just hitting monitor. This is going to bring us to that same page once we've finished adding a host. We'll commit our changes, and then, as you mentioned, you have a few graphs that you'd want to take a look at.
Great. Yeah, let's just jump into taking a peek at, now that we've added it, just to sort of prove to ourselves that it's in there and running well. Maybe we can just take a couple quick looks at some of the graphs that are in there. Maybe an interface, maybe memory or something like that, just to show the viewers sort of, what we're looking at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just jump right into the Linux server, given that was the first one we've added. It'll have a couple extra seconds to collect some of that data. So we're going to scroll up on the left and go to all hosts. This is going to bring us to the page where we can see a bit more about what those devices are. In this case, the 118 is the Linux server that we were looking at. So we'll click this page here. And then some of the things that we're looking at were some of those services that we had added as well.
That's great. And that really took no effort sort of on your side, right? You know, that's the key to the CheckMK software and having the agent on there is that you can sort of find all of the, you know, little pieces out there that you may not have even known that you could monitor. And again, we can go ahead and we can create groups. And like you said, we're going to talk about this in a later video to have some sort of grouping, talk about tagging and things like that. So for development, we have these services. For production, we have a different set of services. Before we sign off, maybe you can just take a few minutes to walk us through some of the graphs and show us some of the eye candy that CheckMK has.
Yeah, there's some really great visual data with CheckMK. The graphing engine's quite powerful. Coming in, we'll see we've got a memory file host here. And on the right, we're going to see a historical timeline on some larger and smaller scale graphs with this data. And one of the really great features with the graphing system in CheckMK is we can go ahead and click a point in time here, and that's going to show us the same representation on these other timescales of where that may be.
Well, thanks, Brandon, for walking us through that. They look very intuitive, really easy to use graphs. I know that CheckMK's got some really fun eye candy. And one of the things we're going to do in a different series is actually see how we can export this into Grafana. We got a lot of customers using this. We have not only the ability to sell the software on our website and the support, but we also have a lot of engineers that handle some of the break-fix support. So make sure you give us a call. We can help you within the pre-sales. We can help you with projects, professional services. Also, be sure to like and subscribe to our channels. And once again, thanks, Brandon, for helping us out.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right, and we'll see you on our next Tech Talk. Thank you.